Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different and talking about the concept of speedrunning in this game. I think it's going to give a good way to show off the tactics that I want to show off today, and then it's also just going to give me a little bit of a break. With the previous builds we've done, there's been a lot of complicated stuff, a lot of new mechanics to talk about, and then a whole lot of red tactic interactions going on, where this one's just going to be very straightforward. And then I also haven't really been feeling all that great this week, so it'll give me a little bit of a more relaxing video to make as well. So for speedrunning, I want to run Bloodthirst and Exhilaration for the massive damage boosts that they give. And then normally I wouldn't be running something like Potential Discovery, but it makes the run a lot more consistent, which is what I need for doing a commentary video. Otherwise, I could switch this to something that gives me more damage. Elite damage in general would be what I would take, or stuff like Starting Well Off and Solo Performance are also very good to take for this run, because you need to get as strong as possible, as fast as possible, with how speedrunning this game works. We'll go more into that during the run. And then also, too, depending on the character, you could maybe run Expanded Foundation or not. For Lambda, I'm going to need it. Obviously, this is not going to be anywhere near optimal as an actual speedrun itself, because I'm going to be stopping to do commentary a lot and that type of thing and explain what's going on. But we'll be doing like a pseudo speedrun, and then explaining the concept of how you would speedrun this game too. Give me 1 second, my music is not wanting to start the hotkey. There it goes. So for today's tactics, we're going to be showing off a couple new red effects, one of them being Execution Storm. Executing an enemy with Rend creates a temporary blade storm at their location, dealing some damage. And then for the second character, we're going to be inheriting Storm, Ring of Fire, where Blade Storm spawns Ring of Fire, and then also Fatal Rend. Fatal Rend is required in order to activate the Execution Storm, which makes inheriting things really awkward when you're trying to use this build, because if you want it active immediately, you need to have Attack Rend or Skill Rend, and then you need the Fatal Rend and the Execution Storm. So it doesn't really let us start with the full build that we want, but as soon as we pick up Blade Storm, that Storm Ring of Fire will become active as well. It won't be active before that. So what we're going to be doing with these two red effects is they're just going to basically work together. We'll see it as soon as I start killing enemies here, but if the enemy has Rend on them, they can be executed from the Fatal Rend upgrade, and then every time they get executed that way, they spawn a Blade Storm. Once I pick up the second red effect, every single Blade Storm that gets spawned this way will also create their own Ring of Fire. It gets really crazy as soon as it starts happening. So for speedrunning, I'm looking for both of the dash upgrades are very good. Triple dash just gives me a lot of mobility, and then the attacking helps group enemies together, while also dealing a fair amount of damage on its own. And then also, basically my goal for this first area is to become as powerful as possible, as soon as possible. So I want to be taking things like Advanced Spaces, I want to make sure I take... The most important thing is that I get potentials here. Potentials are the most important thing in the game when it comes to speedrunning. Legacy tactics matter a lot as well. But other than that, it's a lot about finding... Ooh, that was double MP space, that wasn't the best. But a lot of the speedrun is about finding a specific set of potentials that will make your character the most powerful for the least amount of total potentials. And then if you're going for like record pace runs, you wouldn't want to necessarily do what I'm doing right now in taking additional combat stages at the beginning just to try and get my character set up as fast as possible. This game is extremely reset heavy if you want to min-max your runtime. But if you're just going for like more of a casual take on speedrunning, I think it's very fun. One of the big reset points would be if you don't have your whole build put together by the time you get to the first boss fight, then you might as well just reset there, because you'll be losing way too much time trying to fight the boss without a proper build, compared to if you do have one. We will take triple jump. It's going to be useful for a hidden effect. I actually sort of messed things up here, but I think it'll be salvageable, especially if I'm able to get the upgrade where my dash attacks, or my dashes deal damage on their own. I was supposed to inherit skill rend instead of attack rend here, but like I said, I think we can make up for it. The rest of the stuff for potentials that I'm taking doesn't really matter, especially now. Because what I would have wanted to do was take skill rend and then get frost on attack. But now I can't do that, but I think it's going to be fine either way. Okay, so I kind of alluded to this earlier, but a vital part of the speedrun is that if I were to go into exchange point or max MP here, it puts me through a combat space. It takes a lot of time, both off of the in-game timer and real time. If you're doing an official speedrun for the Speedrun Archives leaderboards, you'd be timed by real time, but they do track in-game as well. But you would mostly want to be focusing on saving real time. However, if you're just doing a speedrun for your own fun, you can use the in-game timer. But either way, every time I'm going into a room like this, like a rest instead of a tactic, I'm saving a whole bunch of time in both real time and in-game time, because I'm not having to go through that combat space anytime, or every time. And this is where you can get really crazy run times compared to if you're playing the game more normally. You're probably stacking as many you're probably stacking a lot more combat spaces just to get a more powerful character. And that's something that in the speedrun you have to kind of balance as well. At least in the high entropy stuff. In low entropy speedruns, the game is so easy if you know just the proper potential build to go for the character, that you don't ever end up too weak for the runs. So it's not really a problem there. But in higher entropy, it's more of a balancing act where you still need to take enough useful spaces, like potentials, to get your build put together properly, and then you also need to balance it with saving time on doing non-combat spaces. Because out of all the non-combat spaces, you can't get potentials out of sortitions, you can't get... you can get potentials out of events, but it's pretty rare. And then you also don't get very many exchange points if you're never going into exchange point spaces. And you do get a little bit of exchange points just from fighting enemies as well, so you Over time, you will lose out on quite a lot of exchange points and then potentials if you're only taking non-combat spaces. And why exchange points matter is that, especially in high entropy, where you have additional shop refreshes, a majority of your potentials actually come from shops, since you're able to buy more than one potential in a single space, as long as you get lucky enough with these shops. It is a luck-based thing. So I'll probably pick up... Unlimited Firepower is actually really good for Lambda. Discount would also be good to take, but I think we'll go with Firepower, because our main source of damage is going to be her up plus skill portals. So I got a upgrade for them, or I got the base version unlocked, and then what I want to look for at highest priority is the upgrade where I can have multiple of them down at once. And then also, I picked up Triple Jump earlier because there's a hidden effect between these up plus skill portals and Triple Jump. Now, every time I do a second and third jump, I spawn these portals as well. And they deal a high amount of damage just from jumping. So now that I'm past stage 1 and I got a lot of the potentials that I want, I pretty much have full build, I'm going to only take non-combat stages as often as possible throughout the run. And like I said before, that's going to be the main way that you save time on speedruns. I picked up the ice spikes since I saw them. They're a very good tactic to use for speedrunning, since you want the upgrade where they'll penetrate through multiple enemies, and then they'll do a lot of free AoE damage for you. Also, I didn't really point it out once I had it, but you've been able to see it going off on the screen during this run. The two red tactics that we put together were, anytime I have a enemy marked with rend, they'll be executed if they get damaged at under a certain health threshold, and then when they get executed, they spawn a Blade Storm. The second red tactic we have is that every time a Blade Storm spawns, it comes with a Ring of Fire. So every enemy that gets executed is making a Blade Storm that's also making a Ring of Fire. And then the Ring of Fire is what's doing the main work of clearing out regular enemies for us. It's a very, very strong AoE option. So some other upgrades I can look for are the Universal Enhancement for more blades, and then the upgrade to Heavy Strike. I think I'm just going to reroll to... this is the Heavy Strike one you could look for. Upon hitting an enemy, summons additional blades. That does a lot of DPS on its own. But I think with Luminous Slave, we're going to have enough DPS just out of skills alone. Oh, right. There is another one I need to look for as well. I'm also probably going to grab an MP upgrade or two. I want to save some of my money in case there's a specific black market I'm going to be looking for. So if I can get that black market, it's going to be helpful if I have some additional money saved up beforehand. So even though I could be buying more Ascensions and stuff, for one, like I mentioned before, speedruns are timed in real time, and that's how I like to go by. Alright, I like to play as if I'm going by real time, even if I'm using the in-game timer as a reference. Because, like, with the in-game timer, I could sit on this menu for 10 minutes and it wouldn't progress the in-game timer at all. Plus, I think it's more fun to, if I have to focus on making decisions quickly, rather than just being able to sit on, like, the potential selection screen for 5 minutes. Which I'm going to be stopping on menus, of course, to do the commentary video, but I mean just if I'm trying to test out speedrunning stuff casually, that's just the basis that I play on. Even if I'm not recording to submit to leaderboards, or recording for a speedrun video. Speedrunning isn't something I do too often. I think it's fun, but the very reset-heavy nature of it isn't really something I enjoy. Unfortunately, this is just one type of stage that I don't have any agency over. It's a survival stage, so I can't make it any faster, despite how quickly I kill things. But you'll see throughout this run that the combination of the red tactics and just Lambda's portals in general are extremely powerful for clearing out normal rooms. I could go for this because it's part of the heavy attack build to deal more boss DPS. There's a couple more things I want to find first, ideally. Especially because one of them is going to be something interesting to show off that I found. I do want this as well, though. Since I did pick up Attack Rend instead of Skill Rend on accident, the dash dealing damage is going to be my main way of applying Rend easily. And then unfortunately, I'm not going to get the other thing I want before I run out of potential refreshes. So I might be able to show it off by the end of the run, and I might not. We'll just have to find out. So one reason I kind of wanted to do this more of as a speedrun video instead of like a Transcendence run or anything is that these red tactics don't really do anything during boss fights, unfortunately. They're tactics that are extremely powerful for clearing out the normal stages because they have so many enemies to trigger off of, but then once you go into a boss fight, they don't really do anything for you. Even if I can summon the Blade Storms through skill as well, and those will have the Ring of Fire, but this is... the Blade Storms themselves don't do a whole lot of damage, and then they're on too long of a cooldown for as low of damage this deals compared to boss HP at high entropy. I will take this. It's just very generically useful. You can rack up combo count very quickly, especially because tactics hitting applies to combos as well. So by the end of the run, if you have a full tactics build, you're probably getting quite a few hits just off of tactics alone. And then it doesn't apply to quite every character, but most characters in this game can do pretty high hit count attacks on their own too. Holy Mark is going to be fine. If we can get to... what's it called? If we can get to Stable Mark from Holy Mark, then that's going to be a very powerful tool. Stable Mark is something that I've more recently found out is just very generically useful. Stable Mark makes it where instead of... So normally how Holy Mark works is that... Oh, that removed my fast kill MP recovery, which isn't great, but I think it'll be fine. Oh, you're perfect. Stable Mark's on screen, so I can talk about it. I feel like the text is a little misleading on it. They should make it more clear, but it says Holy Mark deals less damage, but it can take effect multiple times. What it means by that is that Holy Mark turns into a duration instead of breaking after a single hit like it normally would. And then anytime you hit an enemy during that duration, they take the damage of Holy Mark. It's reduced damage, but it's still way more efficient than trying to apply Holy Mark every single time you break it. So again, like I mentioned earlier, as I was just talking about stuff there, I was looking to select every single... Oh, this is bad. Let me drop my MP before... Oh, we are getting really lucky here. This is gonna be a pretty good boss kill now. It's still a little slow. That's mostly because if I had a proper build with either Frost on my skills or Chain Lightning, I'd be able to chew through the bosses a lot more quickly. But this isn't a tactic build that specializes on bossing DPS, which is one reason why I picked Lambda to do this speedrun. Lambda has enough DPS on her own that it's not an issue. So this... I have 3... This is based on how many different elements you have. I have 3 elements. So it'd give a 75% damage increase. It'd be decent to take. This, I think, would give... let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 debuffs here, so that's already 70%. And then all the buffs here. I was going to maybe look for the one that converts exchange points into damage. The one that converts exchange points into damage can give you an extremely high damage modifier if you just start selling all the additional potentials, or the additional tactics that you don't need, and never spending any of the exchange points. But I think at this point, it'd be better to grab this. We can check to make sure, but yeah, it's a 220% damage increase, which is powerful. When it says Entropy Corruption effect on that effect, it means the amount of buffs and debuffs you have. So I guess I would have 22 total buffs and debuffs right now. Oh, there's a... I was hoping my portals would take care of that enemy for me, but they were maybe shooting at other things. But that's alright. We're still not seeing... The other thing I need to see is the jump upgrade here. You can jump to reset the attack limit of your aerial attacks. So I could roll Sortillo twice here. If I was just going through in-game timer, that wouldn't hurt it at all. But it would hurt the real time. I don't think it's really worth it to roll the Sortillo twice. There's not really a whole lot you would want out of the Sortillos, other than maybe some MP. Tactic refreshes, or tactic ascensions aren't really that necessary during speedruns, because you're mostly relying on your character damage, and then any DPS that you want out of tactics in a speedrun, you want to be inheriting at gold rank, because you want those active immediately. What are we at on in-game? We're at 6 minutes. That's a pretty good pace for doing random stuff. With Rachel, I've managed to beat 50 entropy at just over 5 minutes. But that was also like a fully optimized run with optimized tactics and then probably getting the right potential order early on. Whereas this is a way more casual speedrun. I'm also not, I'm not playing as efficiently as possible as I could be in the normal enemy rooms. That's one other part of the speedrun that I don't really enjoy either, is that you tend to just focus entirely on one move, because that's the easiest thing to do when going for fewer amount of potentials. It's better to just make one move completely overpowered than have a bunch of different ones. So what I should really be doing is like just stacking as many portals as I can and letting them do the work, and then also triggering the jump portals as well if I ever run out of MP. But to have more fun, and I think it'll probably make the video a little more enjoyable too, I'm just doing my like regular Lambda combos and stuff. So I guess to talk a little bit about the speedrunning scene, there is a Discord for it if people are interested, and there is a speedrun leaderboards on Speed Demos Archive. I'll probably just link the leaderboards somewhere in the description, and then the Discord will be on there as well. If anyone's interested in speedrunning the game, I'd be happy to see more people active again. The scene was alive for quite a long time, and then as some of the patches came along, it kind of died out. I can't speak for everyone else, but one of the things that kind of killed it for me were the buffs and debuffs that you can buy before the start of each run. Because now, if you want to have an optimal speedrun, you have to set that up every time you want to speedrun with optimal buffs and debuffs. And it's just, re-rolling for buffs and debuffs is not very fun to do. What you can do is... Oh, I maybe shouldn't have done that yet. Hang on. Yeah, I messed this up a little bit. Let's see if I can save it or not. Okay, yeah, I can save it. We have, there we go. It's a little bit difficult to get enough height to do that, to get the portals high enough, if you don't have the down air attack. It's still possible, it's just more tricky. But if you have the down air and you have the portals unlocked, you can throw them in the air, and then they'll hit Non. Non's actually not off screen, she's just really high in the air. So if you get something that can hit high enough, or you can get enough height to reach her, you can actually hit her out of the sky like that. But yeah, anyways, part of what made me start enjoying the speedruns less is having to get perfect starting buffs and debuffs every run. You can make a copy of your save file, and then if you need to reset, then you just copy the save file again, and you just keep duplicating the same save file in order to still have the buffs every time you start the run. But that's just, it made resetting take a lot longer in a game that was already very, very reset heavy if you wanted to get decent times. So that's I think that's the point where I stopped speedrunning nearly as much. I never speedrun grinded that heavily to begin with. It's not really my type of thing. I like more of a... I like coming up with the concepts of how would this character speedrun most efficiently with the least amount of tactics. But then grinding out runs and resetting constantly isn't really my type of thing. I like executing things, but I don't like having the random factor of, oh, I didn't get my entire build set up by boss 1. Time to reset the run. Another big thing was also that certain boss fights are just slower than others. So if you're going for a leaderboard time, you also need to have the perfect set of boss fights. And then also for leaderboards, room selection is random. So if you get more combat spaces than someone else, you can have a run that was technically executed better, but slower overall, that type of thing. Even though I was never, like, competitive with times or anything, it's still something that's always been a deterrent to me to take it more seriously. But anyways, that's basically how the concept of speedruns work. You want to get your build put together as fast as possible, ideally before the first boss fight even. And then another big part of speedrunning is just make sure you take as many non-combat spaces as possible while still allowing your character to be powerful enough based on what entropy you're running on. I should have checked what my final time was, but you guys will be able to check that on the menu. As long as it was under 10 minutes in game time, I'm more than happy with that at something like 75. Like I said, with Rachel on 50, I got it to 5 minutes, and I think it's even possible to go under 5 minutes in probably even up to like 80. Once you go up to start doing 100, it gets even more reset heavy because, well, for one, 100 is going to be very difficult to min-max time on because you can't just pick spaces with 100% accuracy that aren't going to be combat every time. But then you also, it's not as bad now since you get 2 potential selections instead of just 1 at 100 entropy. But it is, having the less potential selections also just increases RNG of things. You also can't buy potentials from shops nearly as efficiently, so it's something that can greatly delay getting your build set up on your character. So 100 entropy is not something I would probably speedrun in any serious capacity. I like the lower entropies where it's still RNG reliant, but if you just want to get like a decent run out, it's consistent enough, in my opinion. Especially if you take something like extra potential refreshes. But anyways, I've been ranting for quite a long time after the run's already over. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.